All right, lesson 4.2 is titled Soul Sisters, and our objective is to analyze the motivations and emotions of the characters Antigone and Ismene to determine how a conflict is developed in the play's opening scene. And on your guided notes page, you have this warm up question: which is more important, following laws or following your heart, and why? So, is it more important to follow the laws of wherever you live to stay out of trouble, or is it more important to follow what you think in your heart is morally right? And why do you think that? So, pause here to answer this question. Now that you have had some time to answer this question, this is a question that is the foundation of the conflict in the play that we are going to read. So there is a character who has to make a decision. Is it more important to follow the laws of her city, or is it more important to follow what she thinks is morally right or morally correct? All right. So as you guys were doing the web quest, I realized we do not know where Greece is. So I just wanted to take a minute to clarify that we are over here in this area, New England. And across the Atlantic Ocean here is the continent of Africa. And then here is Europe. And right here next to Italy, above the Mediterranean Sea, is the country of Greece. And if we zoom in on this area right here, we see get myself out of the way. We see the Mediterranean Sea here that separates Africa from Europe, and then Greece is right here. Buckle in tight because Antigone's backstory is messy. So, before the beginning of the play Antigone, there are some important events that have happened that we need to cover. So, first of all, I want to remind you that this is a fictional story. Okay, this is not a true story, this is fiction. We are going to start with this family tree and kind of cover the basics, and then I'm going to go in more detail. This level right here is the youngest generation, and these four are siblings: Polynices, Eteocles, Antigone, and Ismene. And the characters that are in purple are female. The characters that are in green here are male. So these are brothers, and these two are sisters. And you can see the parents of these two are, or these four are Oedipus and Jocasta, because the orange line here is showing marriage. So Oedipus and Jocasta. You can also see that the pink line is descendants, and Jocasta was previously married to Laius, and they had a child named Oedipus. And so you can see that we've got this weird triangle going on here because Oedipus and Jocasta were married, had these children, and then they were also mother and son. Jocasta is Creon's sister. Creon is married to Eurydice. They have Haman, who is engaged to Antigone. And so that makes Antigone and Haman first cousins, which to us, it is very shocking to marry your first cousin. But an important detail is that Laius and Jocasta are royalty, or this family is royalty. They are the king and queen. And in royal families, they want to keep the bloodline pure. And so a lot of times they married within their family to keep the bloodline pure. If you remember from the web quest, when you were learning about the gods and goddesses, that some of the gods and goddesses were participating in some incestuous activity. So they were marrying their siblings, they were killing their fathers and marrying their mothers, and all kinds of shocking things. So imagine if the deity that you worship or deities that you worship participate in these incestuous activities. It seems more normal for the Greeks to do this themselves as well, as shocking as that may be to us. If there are any important notes that you need to take while I tell you the backstory of Antigone, there is space underneath the family tree on your notes page to do that. So that is a little bit about the family tree before I go into some detail about this family. So remember, this is all these are all events that happened before the beginning of the play Antigone, and now we need some background information about these characters. So First of all, we start with Laius and Jocasta, and these two have a son named Oedipus. Laius is the king of Thebes, which is a city in Greece, and his wife Jocasta is the queen. And they find out they're having a baby, and they're super excited, but they have some questions about the child's future. So they consult a prophet named Tiresias, and he tells them that they're going to have a son. Yay, they're super excited. Tiresias also tells them that their baby is going to kill Laius and marry Jocasta. So that should be very surprising to us because that's pretty crazy. Laius responds by saying, since we don't want our son to kill and or marry us, we need to take necessary precautions, which means kill the baby. To which Jocasta says that's a great idea, but let's have someone else do it so that we are not the guilty parties in this. And because the gods might not like this and they're going to punish us. So when they say someone else is going to do this, what they decide to do is nail his feet together and put him on a mountain. So something about the Greeks, they love mountains. They're always putting people on mountains as punishment, because the Greek gods' home was Mount Olympus, which is an actual physical place. So this made mountains like a kind of a holy place. So they nail his feet together, put him on a mountain, and then they say, like, the gods can decide. So he can't go away on his own. So we're going to leave it up to fate. Maybe somebody finds him. Maybe he dies exposed to the elements, but it's not really our fault directly. And that's a disgusting picture of swollen feet. The name Oedipus literally means swollen feet. So some shepherds are hanging out with their sheep and they come across this baby. They take the baby to the palace in Corinth. There's a king named Polybus and a queen named Merope, who are the king and queen of Corinth, and they were unable to have children. So this baby arrives at their doorstep. They're super excited. They decide to raise Oedipus as their own. So Oedipus, who is royalty and was born to a king and queen, but was abandoned, is now raised as a prince, royalty again, by adoptive parents. So as Oedipus grows up, he decides to go talk to the oracle in Delphi and see what's in his future. He just kind of is curious about what's going on. So the oracle tells him, you will kill your father and marry your mother. So just like Tiresias told Oedipus's parents. Of course, Oedipus is like, oh no, I don't want to kill my dad and marry my mom. So he decides to book it out of Corinth, and he thinks that's the only way that he can escape this fate is by getting away, running away from Corinth. As he's traveling on the road to Corinth, he meets this rude old guy, and he hulks out on him and kills him and most of this guy's like party that he's with. Well, who do you think this old guy is that he kills? Yes, it's Laius, his father. So the prophecy has come true. But Oedipus does not know this yet. So Oedipus continues on his way to Thebes, not knowing that he's killed his biological father. Thebes in Greece at the time was being terrorized by a sphinx, which is this monster that looks like a half lion, half woman. And Oedipus defeats the sphinx by solving this riddle. So everybody in Thebes is super excited. They're not terrorized by the Sphinx anymore. They're overjoyed. And at the same time, they don't have a king because Oedipus has killed their king, right? He was on a journey. He got killed. He didn't come back. So in that king's place, Oedipus is crowned king and he marries the king's former wife, who is Jocasta, who is his mother. So they are married to one another and do not realize that they are actually mother and son. They are living their lives. They have 4 children. Everything seems good until a horrible plague ravages the area. So people are sick. There's not enough to eat. Oedipus calls on his brother-in-law slash uncle Creon to try to figure out what the problem is. So Creon consults the oracle at Delphi, and the oracle tells him that the plague is a punishment because they have not found the former king's killer. Well, Oedipus is like, this is terrible. I curse the man who has caused us this hardship. I promise to find and punish him, not knowing that he is, in fact, the man who caused the hardship. And Oedipus calls on the prophet. Remember that he's the guy who gave Laius and Jocasta the prophecy from years before that them and marry Jocasta, or would marry. that Oedipus would kill Laius and marry Jocasta. And Tiresias tells Oedipus to give up, tells Oedipus that Oedipus himself already knows who the killer is, but doesn't answer any of his questions as like this big mysterious thing. And Oedipus is mad and he sends Tiresias away. Be gone. As Tiresias is leaving, he mutters that they will discover that the killer of the king is a native citizen of Thebes. He is the brother and father to his own children and son and husband to his own mother, which should be very shocking. Okay. So some more bad things happen because, of course, this is a tragedy. Oedipus accuses Creon of paying off Tiresias to undermine him. So he thinks like Creon's trying to take his place as king. And so they fight, and Oedipus threatens to execute Creon. In the meantime, King Polybus, so this is Oedipus's adoptive dad, dies, and Oedipus is relieved because of the prophecy. He's like, I didn't kill my dad. Everything's good, but he doesn't want to go see his mother because he's afraid that that part of the prophecy could come true. Well, Jocasta steps in and tries to comfort her husband slash son and says, prophets are the worst. You wouldn't believe what the prophet told my first husband and me about our son. He said that our son would kill my husband and marry me, but we got rid of him. That child and everyone knows Laius was killed by roadside bandits. So Jocasta says this prophecy can't be true unless you murdered somebody, which would be crazy. And Oedipus is like, but I did kill somebody on the roadside. Jocasta suggests they bring in the one surviving witness, who is the messenger. He's the same guy who announced Polybus's death. And he says, Polybus did raise you. And I think it's important for you to know that he wasn't your real father. You were actually found on a mountain by shepherds. And then he pieces out. Oedipus is looking at Jocasta because she realizes what's going on. And she's like, Oedipus thinks maybe she's upset because she thinks I don't have noble parents. Because if you marry a king or queen, you have to be from a royal family. And if he grew up on a mountainside with shepherds, then he wouldn't be royalty. And knowing that the palace thinks that bandits are the ones that killed her husband, he's like, I was not a bandit. I'm in the clear. But Jocasta is realizing things and she's like, holy crap. So when she realizes that Oedipus is actually her son, whom she married and now has grown children with, she hangs herself because this is a tragedy. Oedipus realizes the truth and he stabs his own eyes out because this is supposed to be symbolic that he was figuratively blind. He didn't know, he wasn't able to see the truth, and now he literally cannot see. He also exiles himself from the kingdom, so he takes off out of Thebes, which leaves his sons, Eteocles and Polynices, in his place to rule. Well, we know that two kings are not going to get along, so they fight each other to the death. And the only person next in line is Creon, who is Jocasta's brother, who steps in to become king. And because the sons or the brothers fought against each other, one of them fought for the Thebes side, one of them used the army from another city. So because he fought against the Theban army, then Creon thinks that he is a traitor. So Creon refuses to bury Polynices, but buries Eteocles, which leads us to Antigone. So at the very beginning of Antigone, this is what's going on. Let's talk about ancient Greek burial customs before we watch a video that summarizes what happens in Antigone. So in ancient Greece, they believed that at the moment of death, the spirit of the dead left the body as a little breath or puff of wind. So like poof, like you die, poof, your spirit goes away. The people who were left behind prepared the body for burial, just like we do today. But the Greeks believed that if someone was not buried properly, according to their custom, then that person's spirit wouldn't have peace in the afterlife. So they would just kind of float around and be tortured forever rather than have peace, which is obviously something they don't want to happen.